this one. All right.
Awesome. Okay. So this conversation is about nonprofits. Are they beneficial? Are they not beneficial? We're going to start off with making sure everybody gets at least 60 seconds in their comment. Everybody does have to comment. I know you have an opinion about this. So whoever wants to go first, are nonprofits beneficial? Are they not beneficial? Why?
I feel like we've gotten to a point where we have so many nonprofits that are claiming to do the same thing that probably not necessarily beneficial. When you have, say, 60 in the Richmond area that all say they're going to help homelessness and there's still homeless people. What's really being done to help? I guess that.
Yeah, but can an organization go over that and see if there are too many for the same purpose?
You mean like put a cap on how many?
Exactly. Because if you're gonna create something that is like the other one, and it's a nonprofit, can they merge?
I guess that's what my point, like, there's so many that do very similar things to where if there was maybe like one or two that work together to tackle the issue, would that not be better spent, time spent and money spent? Just think about like donating dollars. Your community donates $5 million to the cause, but 250 goes here, 300 goes here. How is that money being pulled together to really solve the end goal, or is it going towards maybe miscellaneous things that don't really impact the cause?
The message is there, like they do want to, their end goal is something positive and something right, but when is it gonna get there?
And, they were initially created because there was a need, and the private and public sectors really wasn't doing enough. So that's how it was created. And I think depending on the area, sometimes it is beneficial, depending on the area. And you can always tell by piggybacking on what Crystal said, the homeless population. If you see a lot of it, then the nonprofit isn't doing its job. If you see very little, then you know that something is happening. But I think it's an area thing, and I think they have to put the right people in the right places. Just saying.
I feel like nonprofits are definitely necessary, but as a consumer or someone who's donating, you need to do your due diligence to understand where, like Crystal said, that money's being allocated to. When you're getting these, flyers in the mail that, you can tell that it's cost them XYZ amount of donated dollars to send these mailings out instead of actually helping whatever cause they're promoting, what is being provided. When you look at all the campaigns for, the different events that people hold, well, that's all fine and dandy, but when you're holding this huge gala and you're charging $150 a head, how much are you actually spending on that black tie event versus how much of that money is actually going towards the cause?
Yeah. I actually learned today from Barry. He said a lot of nonprofits can't be accredited because they wouldn't pass the vetting process.
Yep.
That in and of itself makes you think we're donating hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars to nonprofits. And where's the proof that something's being done? How do you prove that? How do you sit them down and be like, hey, I want to know where this money you're getting is going?
When you look at the annual reports and you see the leadership makes millions of dollars and what the funds that actually went to the cause are slim to none.
Well, I don't know what the guidelines are as far as how much they have to show goes towards the cause to remain a nonprofit. Because I'm pretty sure they have to register, and don't they have to show that they put so much towards the cause to
I
like.
think it's a
remain.
percentage probably of like the donor funds that you pull. But like you were just saying with galas, like think about the ones that are $500-600 for a ticket.
Yeah.
And you're schmoozing and having champagne all night, and but what did $10-20 go to the cause? But it made you
Yeah.
feel good, you know?
Or worse, 50% of it goes to the CEO.
Well, that's
That's a big
yeah,
red flag.
the vacation homes and all that stuff. Yeah.
So how does the government itself monitor that? Or how do we, instead of the government, because clearly that's why we have nonprofits, they don't do nothing. How do we get the community to wake up and realize instead of throwing money at a problem, maybe you should just get involved to start making a difference? Your time is your money instead.
And some people think that putting their money into the charity or the nonprofit is already like, that feels like to them, that's all they need to do.
That's
So they're okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's like their pat on the back for the day.
A lot of people don't have the time, so they depend on those nonprofits.
So the solution will be before you donate, do a research about that nonprofit in particular and how much money of they goes to the cause.
How do we convince the consumer instead to insist that instead of me donating to a nonprofit because their website looks fancy and nice and they've been doing it for years, how do I convince the consumer to insist that nonprofits become accredited so that I actually know that my money is being used to help people?
For the accredited piece, it's the being evaluated for wise giving.
Right, educate the customer and let them know what the nonprofit Better Business Bureau does. So if it's an accredited nonprofit, you know that the money is being disbursed between the parameters.
Looking at tax documents too, like all of those things are available. 990s are available on the internet. So before you're dealing with a group or donating to anyone, maybe that's where you start. And then from there, looking at, because Wise Giving is going to have the 990s, but it's also going to have a more detailed breakdown as to how they spend their funds, their allocation of, educational expenses or leadership salaries or events that they've done.
Just like
So
go,
it's-
sorry,
go
just
ahead.
like go to bbb.org before you shop for a business, go to give.org. So that you know if these companies have agreed to be evaluated. And if they haven't, suggest that they do. And if they don't want to be, or they're a non-disclosure, or they haven't passed those, then you know that there's more to look into. For the ones that have no problem being evaluated and have been able to give that information to get accredited, it's, gives you that extra layer of feel good. So you know that they're actually helping folks.
One of the biggest issues that Barry likes to talk about, especially, is the fentanyl problem that we have, especially in Central Virginia. Do you think that there's so many nonprofits, right, that try to help with fentanyl? Do you think that they're actually making a difference? Has it gotten better or has it gotten worse?
I think it's definitely gotten worse, but I think that it's one of those things where it needs to start. Like they've brought it to, the Congress, or brought it up in what it was, that the assembly that they just had, and getting it passed as laws so that they can more have something to enforce. You're just collecting money. There's nothing you can do to get fentanyl off the streets if they don't change the laws of it.
Do you think that instead of collecting money, they could be actually insisting that consumers give money to build facilities that help people kick a habit in a safe way?
I think probably way more layered than strictly a nonprofit issue. Like it's a policing issue, it's a community issue. Like there's communities that it's like, hear no evil, see no evil. I don't want to talk about it, it's not my business. And then there's police that involve themselves and get involved to make a change, and then it's just part of the job, it's just kind of the next thing
Every
they
day
do.
is different.
Yeah, so to a certain extent, how can a nonprofit eliminate the problem or make the problem less than what it is when there's so many other layers to it?
I think too, you can build facilities and have all that, but there's so many parameters around it and the problem is so large that then you
have to
find the folks that,
Constant.
well, and then you find the folks that get into these houses, but then they still on the side have that habit. And then they're bringing it in these houses and it's not helping. It's, there's ways around it. When you have an addiction, you find ways to get around drug testing that they do on a daily basis when you come back into the house. You find ways to get around that stuff. So unless they have people there that can actually stand up for the problem and make sure that that's, again, it's a policing issue, you can open a million houses.
It's funny that you bring that up. So when I mentioned facilities, I mean houses. Switzerland actually did a study years ago. They had a very huge opium overdose problem. And what they did was they actually built medical facilities on every other block. So people would go and they would get their opium every single day. But each day, the doctors in the facility would lower the dose, until eventually they were no longer addicted to it. Now, the problem with that is that you actually have to have people in there constantly overlooking it. Because otherwise you have issues like in Vancouver, where they've legalized drugs.